Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me today. Welcome to our show, Mind Your Health with Dr. Connie. Today, I'm going to talk to you guys about 7 practical tips for reducing inflammation for autoimmunity. So, what is inflammation? Well, inflammation is the root cause of pretty much all chronic illnesses, especially autoimmunity. The inflammation is what makes our body sick, and we want to have an anti-inflammatory effect through the foods that we eat, and of course through the medications that we take and the supplements and what have you. So basically the goal for autoimmunity is anti-inflammatory. Okay, so today I want to talk to you guys about the foods, right? Because we often focus on the foods because it's the most practical approach, we think, when it comes to changing our ways or our lifestyle, or, when we think about getting better, we think about changing our diet or getting on a diet, so to speak, as if there's some type of a healthy diet out there. And it's true that our foods are in large part very toxic these days. But I want you guys to really start to think differently about your autoimmunity. So rather than focusing on the foods you can or can't eat, focusing on how you feel while eating is much more practical and effective if you think about it, as opposed to overly restricting yourself. So for this episode, I will discuss 7 tips on how to feel well through eating while reducing inflammation in the body, having an anti-inflammatory effect. So recently, I was coaching a client with an onset of autoimmune flare. She began her work with me about a year ago, and since then, she's gotten rid of most of her physical and emotional pain, and her anxiety has come down, and she was feeling overall really well. But recently, the pain was creeping back all over her body. And upon diving deep into the cause, as we spoke, she confessed that she was not happy with where her life was headed. She didn't like her job, her relationships, and most importantly, struggled with so much guilt and anxiety over what to do next. All her life, she's lived her life based on external validation. And so she constantly finds herself doing the same thing. And she's starting to recognize, oh my goodness, my search or her desire or her need for external validation is not serving her anymore. And so because she was conditioned to seek approval from everybody around her, especially her close friends and family, when she realized this, she began to understand why she's getting yet another flare when she was doing all the right things. Because you got to understand, she's very disciplined. She was following the diet or trying to follow the diet, but she just couldn't get herself to stick to whatever she needed to do. And she shared that it was hard for her to stick with her anti-inflammatory diet she started recently. And she knows that being on that diet would make all the difference, yet she could not get herself to follow the protocol. And she was baffled, and because she couldn't understand why. And the more she resisted, the more she became heavy with a burden, full of guilt and shame over why she could not get herself to comply with what she needed to do. And this was precisely why most autoimmune diets, supplements, and program have limits. While they provide temporary results, they typically don't provide long-term results. If you have an autoimmune condition and it's completely under control or in remission, that's really wonderful. But for most of you who are likely struggling with intractable autoimmune condition, where no matter what you try, it only provides you with short-term results, then you must expand your awareness to other areas of your life that is potentially perpetuating the disease in the body. Almost always, there is a root cause to your autoimmunity, and that root cause is not so obvious sometimes. It's the things in your life that are hard to change, such as who your parents are, your relationships currently that you seem to be stuck in. Sometimes it's your marriage, and sometimes it's your children acting up, right? And your relationships with others are really, at the end of the day, your responsibility because you can't change others. That's something you need to understand. But what you can change is your response to others by setting clear boundaries and choosing a better response to them. So, most people struggle with marriage, like I said, kids, relationships with family. And this is because they trigger something deep within us. And many times, such triggers are dormant until they are triggered by something. Something gets triggered by, or sometimes, we get triggered by a death of a loved one. Sometimes it's the moving from, one state to another or country to another. Sometimes it's the divorce. Sometimes it's changing jobs, or sometimes it's even getting sick and then having a life-altering moment. But some life-altering event leads us to look beyond the circumstance and look to the very thing that may be the culprit. And this is great because that's when we have an opportunity to transform the way we view the world and potentially change ourselves in the process. Our very beliefs are challenged, and when they are discredited in such times, then and only then can we move forward without the bondage of such limiting beliefs that tend to keep us exactly where we are, even when we don't want or like where we are. And you know what? At the end of the day, this is human nature. So when autoimmune strikes and your health is in crisis, most people want to do something to make it better. The most common thing they look to change, like I said, is their diet. For good reason too, because it's our common ground. Food is universal. We all need to eat to survive. And the question then is, which foods are best for autoimmunity? Today, I want to encourage you to ask beyond the autoimmune puzzle, to ask what specific foods are medicine for you, and which foods are poison, and why is that so? Because over 22 years, personally, as a registered dietitian, my clinical experience taught me that there is no one-size-fits-all approach when it comes to diet, specifically for autoimmunity. So when there's a hype about autoimmune paleo or intermittent fasting and all the people who are benefiting from the plan, I know that there are just as many people that didn't have such success with autoimmune paleo or intermittent fasting. This is why some buy into plant-based, vegan, intermittent fasting, keto, Whole30, etc. I want you to understand that it matters less about which diet. What matters more is what's your state of being. Are you in alignment with your essence or your truth? Or are you busy trying to be the person everyone else wants you to be? When you're trying to be, or when you're trying to do or be the latter, you'll constantly find yourself frustrated with your life because you are living a lie to yourself. Your life is about being in alignment with the lie that you've created because your identity was shaped by everybody's expectation of who you ought to be versus who you truly are. And not many of us are, able to boldly live out our truth. We're conditioned to want and do what we should and ought to do versus being the person who we truly are from the inside, from the get-go. So with this in mind, I want to share the 7 tips with you to find the perfect anti-inflammatory food plan for you. And to provide you with the context, I too used to chase the specific diet plan for myself to reverse my autoimmunity until I realized that it's not only about the foods, it's more about what state the nourishment is promoting in your body, right? So I want you to think about less about the food but what state your body is in and what the food that you are putting in your body is promoting or facilitating in the body for you. Okay. So with that in mind, it's a different way to think altogether. So with that in mind, I'd like to help you to redefine what healthy nourishment is versus healthy diet or nutrition. Because at the end of the day, when we eat, we want to nourish the body to have a healing effect, right? And unless our state of being is in that condition and the foods, really amplify that state of being, we're going to be short-sighted when we adopt a specific diet or think that food has everything, or food is what really heals us, right? Because that's a false belief in and of itself if you think you are eliminated from the equation of health. So you must stay in alignment as well as part of the equation of your healthy state of being. So what is healthy? So healthy has 8 letters or 7 letters. So the first letter is H. H stands for harmonious. So whatever foods you consume, it should bring harmony and balance in the body. Whether you're eating an apple watermelon versus a hamburger or even a nice chicken soup, it should promote harmonious state of being within. So I want you to really think about what you're craving and how you are chewing, what your state of receiving this nourishment is, and how you're making the choices in terms of the foods that you put into your mouth. Okay. The second letter is E. It should be easy to cook or implement, right? And A is awareness. It should promote self-awareness. The foods you take in or nourishment that you put into your mouth should promote self-awareness. You should know what it tastes like. You should know the effect it has in your body, and you should be in tune with whatever it is that you're eating. L stands for love. Your nourishment should cultivate self-love, and you should be eating foods from that state of being full of self-love. T stands for truth. It should bring forth your essence, your truth. And H stands for habitual. It should be habitual in nature so that you can stick to the plan, right? And Y stands for you. It should be all about you. So that's healthy in a nutshell. Because too often we try to adapt foods and diet plans based on science or somebody else's logic or results. It's important to remember that you're one of a kind. What worked for them may not work for you, and vice versa. Your nourishment should be dedicated to how it makes you feel. So it's important for you to be connected to your mind and body to promote health and wellness. When we follow somebody else's protocol, we assume many things that may not be true for us. Only you can know how the nourishment makes you feel, and that something is not always obvious or tangible. This is why we must be centered and grounded in our own truth and honor and respect ourselves enough to begin to tune inward when we're eating, especially when we're choosing foods that nourishes our body. Because nourishment is ultimately what heals our body. And food does heal, and food comes in many forms. It comes in the thoughts that you think. It comes in the beliefs that drive your feelings or trigger your feelings, and feelings then allow us to make choices in behaviors, in what we do. So everything is sort of related in our body, and includes your food choices as well. So you have to really be intimate, but it starts with being healthy from the inside out, your state of being, with the 7 essential tips, 7 essential letters of A being profoundly impactful for your transformation. So remember that always. when it comes to your health. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys all next week.